The house was quiet, too quiet for a Friday night. Grace stood by the kitchen window, her tea untouched, watching Emily's room glow faintly through the upstairs blinds. The clock read 12:37 a.m. Her daughter was still awake. Again, how long had she been whispering to someone after midnight? Grace wondered, and what secret could make a 17-year-old cry in the dark? She took one cautious step toward the stairs when a sound froze her mid-breath, muffled sobs. Then a whisper, trembling yet determined. It has to happen soon, before they find out. Grace's heart jolted. Who was they? She leaned closer, pulse pounding, and through the thin wooden door, she heard Emily say another name. Noah. The same name she hadn't spoken in 20 years. Her throat tightened. Was it just coincidence? Or was the past returning in her daughter's voice? The sobs stopped. Silence pressed heavy against the walls. Then came the faint creak of floorboards and a shadow slipping past her door. Emily, clutching a small white envelope with Grace's name on it. Grace didn't sleep. She sat at the edge of her bed, the envelope untouched beside her. The name, her own, looked too deliberate, too final. When dawn light crept across the room, Daniel stirred beside her and asked softly, "You're up early?" She forced a smile. Couldn't sleep. She hid the envelope under a book as he reached for his glasses. Daniel's eyes lingered on her too long, like he knew something. "Emily okay?" he asked. Grace shrugged, pretending to tie her robe. Teenage moods. But her heart wouldn't calm. Why did her daughter write her name like a goodbye? By breakfast, Grace was pretending again. She flipped pancakes, asked Emily about school, and smiled too often. Emily's phone buzzed on the counter. She snatched it up before Grace could glance. "Just Claire texting me," Emily said too fast. Grace's hands paused midair. Claire never texted Emily. When Daniel walked in, he kissed his daughter's forehead and looked at Grace. That same searching look from earlier. 3 people sharing breakfast. 3 different lies. Grace finally asked. What's in that envelope?" Emily froze. What envelope? The silence was louder than the ticking clock. After Emily left for school, Grace slipped into her daughter's room. It smelled faintly of lavender and pencil shavings. The desk was too neat. Every item perfectly aligned except for a single missing notebook. Grace opened a drawer, finding pages torn out, tape residue along the edges. Her pulse quickened. The window caught her reflection, a mother searching through her daughter's life. On the wall hung a photo of Grace and Emily when she was little, both laughing under the sun. Now that same smile looked like a lie. That night, when Emily came home, Grace couldn't stop watching her. Every laugh, every word sounded like code. After dinner, Emily disappeared upstairs. Grace waited until she heard the door close, then slipped quietly into her daughter's room again. The white envelope was gone. Only a faint mark remained on the desk, and beside it, a single folded scrap of paper, written in Emily's careful handwriting. Sorry, Mom. You'll understand soon." Grace sat down slowly, the words cutting deeper than any truth she could imagine. Grace sat alone at her desk that night, the rain whispering against the windows. She'd found Emily's notebook hidden behind old photo albums, half its pages torn, the rest filled with sketches, names, and dates. At the top of one page in red ink were the words, "The accident, 2005. Her chest tightened. That year had never been mentioned in their home. She read further. Fragments of news headlines. Lines like "Mom knew," and "He helped her hide it." Her hands trembled so violently the page nearly tore. Emily knew. Somehow, she'd found out. Grace whispered into the empty room. "Who told you, Emily?" "How much do you know?" Then she noticed something else. A folded newspaper clipping taped inside the back cover. Her own name highlighted beneath the words, "Local woman cleared in fatal crash." Grace couldn't stop replaying the past. The curve of the road, The flash of headlights. The sound that never left her dreams. She'd buried that night so deep, she'd almost believed it had never happened. She picked up the clipping again. The article mentioned the driver's cooperation and the witness who changed everything. That witness had been Daniel. Her husband had sworn to never speak of it again. Grace stared at their wedding photo on the wall, her reflection trembling in the glass. If Emily knew, how long had Daniel known she did? The next morning, Grace acted normal again, but inside something cracked. At school, while grading papers, she could barely focus. Claire walked in, holding 2 coffees and a concerned look. "You okay?" she asked. Grace forced a smile. "Just tired." Claire frowned. "I saw Emily yesterday. She looked off." "Who's Noah?" The name landed like thunder. Grace froze mid-sentence. "Why do you ask?" She mentioned meeting him after class. Claire hesitated. "Grace, I think you should talk to her." Grace grip tightened on her pen until ink spilled across the page. Black, like the secret leaking out. That evening, Grace returned home early. The house was silent except for the ticking clock. She went straight to Emily's room, her hands shaking as she searched the desk again. The notebook was gone. Drawers empty. Then she noticed the window slightly open. Raindrops scattered across the sill. A breeze carried in the faint scent of perfume and something else, gasoline. Outside, headlights flashed in the driveway and disappeared. Grace's pulse quickened. Who had been there? She looked back at the desk and saw a single photo she hadn't noticed before. Emily and a young man, smiling, his arm around her. Written on the back, Noah, 19. Grace waited for Emily to come home that night, the photo burning in her hand. When Emily walked in, soaked from rain, Grace stepped forward. "Who is he?" Emily's eyes flickered. Fear. Then defiance. "He's my friend." "You're lying," Grace whispered. "Where did you meet him?" Emily's lips trembled. "You wouldn't understand." Grace held up the photo. "You have no idea who he is." Emily's jaw tightened. "Neither do you." She stormed upstairs, leaving her mother standing in the hallway, the photo curling in her fist as thunder cracked outside. Grace hadn't planned to follow her. It just happened. When Emily left that morning, backpack slung tight and headphones in, Grace waited a few minutes, then started the car. The roads were slick with last night's rain, trees glistening like witnesses. At a stoplight, she watched Emily turn the corner on foot and slip into a black sedan waiting by the curb. A young man stepped out. Tall, calm, smiling. Grace's heart slammed. The same face from the photo. The boy named Noah. She grabbed her phone, snapping a blurry picture through the windshield. For a moment, Noah looked up, straight into her camera lens, and smiled, like he knew she was there. Grace followed from a distance, heart pounding so hard it drowned out the rain. The car led her out of town, past the old bridge she hadn't crossed in years. The same bridge from that night. Her fingers tightened on the wheel. Every turn felt like a memory repeating itself. The sedan slowed near the edge of a small clearing by the river. Grace parked behind a row of trees and watched as Emily and Noah stepped out. They were laughing. Not guilty, not afraid, just happy. And that hurt more than any lie. Then Noah pulled something from his bag, a worn leather folder. Grace zoomed in through her phone camera and froze. On its cover, Holloway case file. Grace's breathing became shallow. She couldn't think, only act. She stepped out of the car, moving quietly through wet grass. Emily and Noah were too focused to notice. Their voices floated back in pieces. She deserves to know. We can't hide it forever. Gracie's shoes sank into mud. She ducked behind a tree, clutching her chest as Noah handed Emily a stack of documents. The wind flipped one page open. A faded headline caught her eye. Teen killed in car crash, witness missing. Grace felt her legs weaken. That headline had haunted her for 20 years. She stumbled backward, snapping a twig. Both heads turned toward the sound. Oh! Noah turned first. His gaze pierced straight through the rain, scanning the trees. Grace froze, holding her breath. Emily looked uneasy. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Nothing," Noah replied softly, though his eyes didn't leave the woods. He smiled faintly, too faintly. "Just thought I saw someone." Grace ducked lower, heart thundering, raindrops slipping down her face like tears. Noah took Emily's hand. "We should go," he said, guiding her back toward the car. Grace stayed still until they were gone, then ran to where they'd stood. The folder was gone. But one paper lay soaked in mud, the ink smearing just enough for her to read one name: Grace Holloway. That night, Grace confronted Daniel. The rain hadn't stopped, now hammering against the windows like accusation. She dropped the muddy page on the table. "Why is my name in this file?" Daniel's eyes darted once, then steadied. "Where did you get that?" "Emily has it, and she's with him." He swallowed hard. "Who?" Grace's voice cracked. "Noah Ride." The color drained from his face. Silence. Then, a whisper. "Grace." His father was the man in the crash. The world seemed to stop. Grace stepped back, the room spinning. "And our daughter's with him." Daniel nodded slowly. "Maybe she already knows everything." Grace couldn't breathe. Daniel's words replayed in her mind. His father was the man in the crash. The room spun as years she'd buried broke through the surface. "You told me it was over," she whispered. Daniel rubbed his temples. "I thought it was." Grace's voice rose, shaking. "Our daughter is with his son, Daniel. You think that's over?" He looked at her, tears forming. She was never supposed to find out. Grace turned away, her reflection fractured in the rain-soaked window. "Then tell me why his name was missing from the report." The silence that followed was heavier than guilt. Daniel didn't answer. He couldn't. The next day, Grace met Claire at the small cafe across from the school. Her hands trembled as she stirred untouched coffee. "Do you remember the Red family?" she asked quietly. Claire nodded slowly. "Of course, the car accident." Grace's eyes met hers, heavy with secrets. Emily seeing his son. Claire's mouth fell open. "Oh my God." Grace leaned forward. "You can't tell anyone." Claire hesitated, then whispered, "Grace, does Emily know what happened back then?" Grace didn't answer. The coffee between them went cold as both women realized the past wasn't staying buried. After school, Claire decided to see for herself. She waited near the parking lot, watching students leave in clusters. Then she saw them, Emily and Noah, walking side by side, laughing softly, unaware of the eyes that followed. Claire froze when she heard another teacher whisper, "Isn't that Noah Reed?" "His dad." The rest trailed off. But the words were enough. Claire's chest tightened as she realized what Grace's daughter was tangled in. She took out her phone, snapping a photo. Not for gossip, but proof. Proof Grace would need to face. That evening, Claire arrived at Grace's door, drenched in rain and guilt. She handed her the phone silently. On the screen was the photo, Emily and Noah, smiling, unbroken. Grace's breath caught. "Where was this?" "After school," Claire replied softly. "Grace, you have to talk to her." Grace nodded, tears threatening. She already knows. She's not just dating him. She's rewriting what happened. Claire frowned. "What do you mean?" Grace turned the phone off, her voice trembling. "She's building a story, Claire, about us. About what we did." Later that night, Grace crept into Emily's room one last time. The computer screen glowed faintly, showing a folder labeled, "The truth my parents never told me." She clicked. Dozens of files appeared, photos of old newspaper clippings, audio recordings, voice memos of Emily interviewing Daniel. "Tell me what really happened." Her daughter's voice echoed softly from the speakers. Daniel's broken reply followed. "We didn't mean to cover it up." Grace covered her mouth to stop herself from screaming. Every lie she'd protected was there, digitized, time-stamped, ready to destroy them all. Grace sat frozen in front of the computer. Her heartbeat drowned out every sound as she opened one of the video files. Emily appeared on screen, sitting in her bedroom, speaking directly to the camera. "This isn't about hate," she said softly. "It's about truth. The story I grew up hearing isn't real. The people I love made a choice that ruined a life." Grace's hand shook as she paused the clip. Daniel's voice came faintly from the next room. She turned up the volume, and Emily's words sliced through her. "I need the world to see who my parents really are, before they do it again." Daniel entered quietly. "Grace, what's wrong?" She turned the screen toward him. His face went pale as Emily's voice filled the room. "My father said it was an accident, but accidents don't end with silence." Daniel sank into the chair beside her, burying his face in his hands. "She found everything," Grace whispered. "She's not just exposing us, Daniel. She's trying to fix what we broke." He looked up, hollow-eyed. "She doesn't understand what this will do." Grace met his gaze, voice breaking. "Neither did we back then." Grace couldn't bear it any longer. She needed answers. She drove to Noah's apartment that night, the same address she'd seen in one of Emily's emails. The building was small, brick, quiet, too quiet, too quiet. Noah opened the door, surprised but calm. "Mrs. Holloway," he said as though he'd expected her. "Where's Emily?" she demanded. "She's safe," he replied. Grace stepped closer. "What are you doing to her?" Noah's expression softened. "Nothing. She came to me. She wanted to know the truth. I just gave her what my father left behind." Grace's voice trembled. "Your father's death ruined our lives." Noah met her eyes, unflinching. "It ruined mine, too." Noah invited her in. The apartment was cluttered with papers, photographs, and a laptop open on the table. Grace recognized her own younger face in some of the photos. News archives, police reports. Emily said, "You deny it," Noah murmured. "Deny what?" "That your husband helped make the report disappear." Gracie's breath caught. "He was protecting me," Noah nodded slowly. "And that's why she's doing this. She thinks truth can heal what silence destroyed." Grace looked around the room, seeing fragments of her life laid out like evidence. "She's going to destroy us," she whispered. "Or save us," Noah replied. Back home, Grace stood outside Emily's locked door. "Please, Emily," she whispered, knocking gently. No answer. Through the door, she could hear muffled typing, the faint hum of her daughter's voice recording again. Grace pressed her forehead against the wood. "Don't do this to us," she begged. From the other side came Emily's calm reply, almost too soft to hear. "I'm not doing it to you, Mom. I'm doing it for him." Grace stepped back, tears flooding her eyes. The sound of a mouse click echoed like a gunshot. One more piece of truth recorded. Morning came gray and silent. Grace hadn't slept. She waited at the kitchen table, the coffee in front of her cold. When Emily came downstairs, she looked calm. Too calm. Grace whispered, "We need to talk." Emily didn't sit. "You already know what I'm doing." "Then stop," Grace said. "Please." Emily met her mother's eyes, steady but wounded. "You lied to me my whole life. Why should I stop now?" Grace reached for her hand, but Emily pulled away. Daniel entered quietly, his face pale. "Emily, it's not that simple." She turned to him, voice shaking. "You covered up a man's death, Dad. It's that simple." Daniel sat down slowly. "Emily, what happened that night wasn't what you think." Emily crossed her arms. "Then tell me what I'm missing." His voice broke. "Your mother didn't see him. It was raining." He stepped into the road, Emily's face faltered for a second, but Grace's eyes stayed down. "You hid it," Emily said. "You let people think he was drunk," Grace whispered. "Because I was scared. I was going to lose you both." Emily shook her head. "You already did." Her voice cracked, and for the first time, Grace saw her daughter not as a child, but as someone carrying the weight she'd passed down. Grace stood abruptly. "You think I don't live with it every day?" she cried. "You think I don't see his face when I close my eyes?" Emily stared at her, startled. "Then why didn't you tell me?" Grace's voice cracked like glass. "Because you were a child. Because I couldn't bear for you to see me as a monster." Daniel tried to reach her, but she stepped back, sobbing. "Every time I looked at you, I saw the life I stole from someone else." Emily's expression softened for the first time, torn between anger and empathy. "Then let me tell it," she whispered. "Let me tell the truth you can't." That evening, Grace found Emily in her room, editing the final version of the video. "Please," Grace begged softly, "don't post it. Talk to me instead." Emily turned, eyes red but determined. "This isn't just about you. Noah deserves peace. His father deserves a name, not a headline." Grace sat on the floor, leaning against the bed. "If you do this, we'll lose everything." Emily whispered, "Maybe that's what has to happen." For a moment, neither spoke. The computer screen glowed between them like a fire neither could extinguish. When Daniel came home later, the house was silent. He found Grace in the living room, staring at the TV. On the screen, Emily's video was queued, ready to upload. "She said she's posting it tomorrow," Grace whispered. At midnight, Daniel sat beside her, eyes wet. "Maybe it's time," he murmured. Grace turned toward him, voice trembling. "Time for what?" "To stop pretending," he said. She looked down at her hands, steady now. "Then we tell her everything. All of it." The two sat in the dim light, waiting for a storm they could no longer outrun. The house was silent except for the ticking clock. 1143 p.m. Grace sat on the stairs, listening to the faint clatter of keys from Emily's room. She had promised herself she wouldn't beg again, but every sound made her heart flinch. Daniel sat on the couch, head in his hands. "If she posts it, everything's over," he whispered. Grace stared at the ceiling. "It was over the night we lied." The clock struck 1145. Upstairs, a chair creaked. Then, the unmistakable sound of a file uploading. Grace stood. "It's happening," she breathed, racing for the stairs. Grace burst into Emily's room. The screen showed a progress bar. 97% uploaded. "Emily, stop," she shouted. Emily turned, startled but unyielding. "It's too late, Mom." Grace rushed forward, hands trembling. "You don't understand. You'll destroy us." Emily's voice rose with emotion. "Then tell me why. Tell me what really happened." Grace froze. Outside, thunder roared. She took a long breath. "Your father wasn't driving that night." Emily blinked. "What?" Grace's eyes filled with tears. "It was me. I was behind the wheel." The progress bar hit 99%. Emily stared at her mother as if seeing her for the first time. "You?" she whispered. "But Dad said." "He lied to protect me," Grace said, her voice trembling. "I panicked. The road was slick. He stepped out too fast." Emily's hand covered her mouth, tears falling freely now. "You let me hate him for you." Grace reached forward. "Because I couldn't bear for you to hate me." Daniel appeared in the doorway, silent, broken. Emily turned to both of them, voice cracking. "You built my whole life on a lie," Grace whispered. "No, I built it to survive." The progress bar blinked 100% uploaded. Grace collapsed to her knees. "Please," she sobbed. "Take it down." Emily shook her head, tears falling. It's already sent. To the press, to the school board. I can't undo it. Daniel stepped forward, voice trembling. Emily, listen. We'll face it together. Emily looked between them, her anger dissolving into heartbreak. I just wanted you to tell the truth, she whispered. Grace reached out, pulling her close. For a long moment, mother and daughter held each other, trembling, crying, breathing the same pain. Then, from the computer, a soft chime sounded. A message notification. Received. Will publish at dawn. By sunrise, the rain had stopped. Grace sat alone in the kitchen, staring at her phone. A new email notification blinked at the top of the screen. The sender, unknown. The subject line, the world deserves to know. Her fingers hovered before opening it. Upstairs, she heard Emily stirring, Daniel pacing. The first light of morning washed over the house, soft and gray. Grace finally tapped the message. It wasn't from Emily. Attached was the full video, already shared. Beneath it, a single sentence. Truth doesn't ask permission. Grace set the phone down and whispered, "Then let it."